happened to the intro? Hmm. Anyways, my name is Ben Holloway. Welcome back to the Death Taxes and Sports podcast. We're excited to bring you episode 94. We're joined by one of the hosts of Bitches Love Sports podcast, Flor DeLethal. How are you this evening?
Doing good, doing good. Happy to be here. How are y'all?
Excellent. Thank you for joining.
Marissa,
Of course.
how we doing? Everyone good?
We're hanging in there. We got, a little cold from traveling back from Florida, and we were at the casino. I didn't come back a millionaire, so sorry, audience. Can't, share the wealth with everybody.
Oh, that's great. That's great. So why don't we get this rolling? Tonight we're going to talk about Damian Lillard, of course, like every network over the last 3 weeks. We're going to talk on that. We'll discuss Kyrie re-signing with the Mavs, the Lakers, and man, we got the Mets and Padres with two of the most disappointing teams in baseball. We'll talk about who's the most. We're going to lead off with Dame, and being the guest, I'm going to toss it to you first. Flor, go ahead. Floor is yours.
So just generally my thoughts about Dame and this whole potential trade situation.
Yeah,
Um,
babe. Yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
so it's tough because I think the question right now for a lot of people is like, okay, what team should Damian Lillard go to? Um should they try to make a deal with the Heat? Um, or should it be some other team? And honestly, it's like, of course, for the Trailblazers, it would make the most sense to take the best deal. Like that's all they should be concerned about if they're just looking at what's in it for them, right?
Hmm.
But when you think about the fact that Damian Lillard seems pretty adamant, according to reports, about not going to anywhere that's not Miami, you kind of wonder like how can they get a deal done with anybody else? So it's almost like if they did try to negotiate with some other team besides the Heat, they could almost expect to not get a fair deal because like what team is going to go into that trade knowing that the reports are out there saying that like oh Lillard might not even show up to training camp if he ends up with some other team, right? So
Hmm.
most teams are not going to be down for that. So I'm thinking at some point we might see a third team, sorry, a third team involved in this situation where uh, the three of them will have to work together to make this work because it doesn't seem like the Heat have exactly what the Trailblazers are looking for. Um, and so they might have to get a third team involved to make it happen. But I think whatever does happen is going to ultimately involve the Heat unless Damian Lillard just like changes his mind.
Oh my God, that's 100% facts. That is 100% facts. They do need a third team involved to make this work. It can't be between two teams. We already seen Tyler Hero already just like disown and clean his social medias clean of quote unquote the stench of the team that did him wrong because he got injured at the wrong time during the postseason, right? So obviously, he's going to be dealt somewhere, whether it be Portland, whether it be whatever third team that's involved. Like Floor said, they have to make it happen. I think that it's not going to be an Oklahoma Thunder situation where they got an ungodly amount of picks for the next several years. However, that happened. Their GM is absolutely brilliant on that end. But I'm curious to see if it is Miami and what they are going to willing to give up and to offer to make this happen. Because literally a portion of the welcome red carpet is like, I would say 55% rolled out for Dame to join this team.
Yeah. So we got Jeff live at the All-Star game, patiently waiting over here. What's going on, Jeff? How we feeling?
How you doing? I'm good, man. I'm good. The atmosphere is pretty live here. There's tons and tons of people. No, man, I just want to get on this whole Miami Heat thing. I don't think he's going to Miami. I don't think it's going to happen. I think the Jazz are going to make a move. I think they probably have the most assets to be able to make a trade. I don't think it's going to make the most sense, but if you're Portland, what incentive do you have to trade him to Miami just because that's where he wants to go? I understand that that's where it's the most ideal fit, but I think this team is going to be so depleted by trading Tyler Hero and maybe Duncan Robinson are going to have to be in that trade. So do you really trust Bam and Jimmy Butler and Dame to be the big three that can contend for a championship?
So thank you for everyone kind of weighing in. I'm going to answer the question as far as does Portland owe Dame anything with a big fat no.
Mm-hmm.
I looked this up. By the end of 2027, because we know NBA contracts are guaranteed, he'll have made, all from Portland, $450 million. Now, of course, if he's on a new team, he's still going to get that money. So, by the way, that'll be the third highest in the entire league for active players. KD, Kevin Durant, and Steph Curry above him. So as far as the Blazers owing him, I'm going to say a big fat no. They got to take the best offer, regardless of what that offer is. I don't think they owe him anything at all, to be frank. That's a lot of money. We're talking about almost $500 million just in contract. So to me, if they got to put Dame on Oklahoma City, which they wouldn't do it, but really, I'm just thinking of a random team. You take the best deal available. They still got to run their franchise, Portland.
And Ben,
Jeff, go ahead, Jeff.
Just real quick. On the last year of that contract, he's going to be owed $60 million. Right?
Yeah.
Like that's an insane amount of money for a player who's already 33. All right. So if you're Miami, you're looking at the window of Jimmy Butler, who's already 33, about to be 34. Do you really want upwards of $110 million in key players by the time 3 years from now, based on their contract, $110 million in players on the wrong side of 30? You have to ask yourself that question. So I don't think Dame, based on the type of assets that Miami would have to give up, would really change the tide for Miami unless you're confident that they can turn these undrafted free agents or these rookies into key contributors like they did last season. So those are the questions you have to ask from an excellent Rose perspective.
You raise a valid point there, and it is interesting to think about that. If he does end up in Miami, two of your best players are on the other side of 30, and kind of both have injury histories. Obviously, Jimmy Butler's more extensive than Dame's, but Dame's been hurt the last couple of years too. So, I mean, does that put them over the top, in the East?
It's an interesting perspective that he made. I didn't even think about the Utah Jazz. And what I was going to ask him, if Jeff, you can hear me, is that if Dame does end up going to the Utah Jazz, how does his veteran leadership benefit to this team to make it a contender to the postseason?
I mean, you got to think about this, right? They surprised a lot of people in the first quarter of the season before they imploded, right? You have what's that dude's name? The All-Star, I forgot his name. He was an All-Star last year. I completely forgot his name. But anyway.
Keep talking.
Clarkson,
I'll figure it out for you. Go ahead.
I'm trying to remember his name, but he was an All-Star for the first time this year. And then you also had Jordan Clarkson.
Markkanen, I think. Lauri Markkanen?
Lauri Markkanen.
Right? So
there we go. Yep.
So I think this team, I'm not saying that they're going to be able to be a contender, but I think if you add Dame, all the draft capital that the Jazz have, I think this team could be a fringe top 6 team, maybe bottom 6, maybe make a play-in potentially. That's why I'm not throwing that. I mean, a lot of people saying the Jazz are losing. I trust what they're saying. So Wojnarowski keeps on talking about the Jazz too. So I think they might be in the running. Like I said, but Portland doesn't owe Dame anything. He's got his money. So
yeah. Right. And we got to be honest too. I mean, sorry, I was just gonna say the Jazz GM Danny Ainge loves wheeling and dealing. So that's
I agree that the Trailblazers don't owe him anything. I just don't see how it can work if he's putting the message out there that he's not going to be cooperative if he doesn't go to the. I think that has to change before anything else works.
I also don't know who that came from. Like, I feel like that. I don't know.
Is that him talking, or is that his agent talking?
That's what I'm saying. It seems like because Dame isn't that demanding. He demanded a trade. He's not going to come out. He hasn't said, nor will he say publicly, I'm only going to Miami. So then it makes you think.
But he hasn't shut down the rumors either.
Exactly.
That's true. You got to.
So I think if it's not coming from him, he's going to have to say something if he wants to be
Yeah.
open to other teams. Because as
Mhm.
long as it looks like it's coming from him and he's not denying it and teams believe that,
Hmm.
I just can't see anybody taking that risk and trading what they'd have to trade to get him and then risking that he just doesn't show up or just shows up there and then starts immediately making demands. You know?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it's something to pay attention to, and obviously we know the GM yesterday said it could take several months. And to be frank, I mean, they're just doing their due diligence. I think that if it needs to take that much time, I mean, First Take and all them sports shows aren't going to complain talking about Dame every single
Right.
day. So,
And here's the thing, too, ladies and gentlemen, that we got to realize Father Time is not on his side. He's not a young 20-something-year-old. He's almost in his mid-30s. So, yes, you have done everything you can. A key contributor in Portland Trailblazers is now making moves to have them somewhat be a contender. But this is something that's going to either bite Damian Lillard in the behind or the organization in the behind if it's not handled properly.
And my thing is, they waited too long to do the trade.
I agree.
He waited too long.
Oh, he waited like 3 years too long.
You mentioned this on the previous show that he almost pulled a Reggie Miller and stayed with one organization and dedicated his whole entire career to an organization where they didn't want to spend any money to put any people around him to make that team a contender.
Mm-hmm.
And I agree with you. It is too late.
I mean, you look at the free agents from the last several years, right? Like, Portland is not a destination that's going to attract the top free agents. I don't care. I live 2 hours from Portland. Portland is not a place where people are dying to go. Trust me. I'm just saying. But he waited a couple of years. But my thing is that he should have requested for a trade before the draft, when there was more flexibility, the teams had more cap space, then they could have done more sign and trades. But now the teams because of the collective bargaining agreement, they have to spend at least 90% of their cap, no matter what.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So now, after these teams have already spent 90% of their cap, it's the timing is bad. So I think the timing is bad. Honestly, his timing is up. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah. So we're gonna keep it moving to the next NBA, and Marissa, I'm gonna toss this one to you first. The Lakers, according to pretty much everyone, have won the offseason, and they have done well. But the question is what they've done enough to get them over the top? Like, what is their ceiling? What is their best case scenario? Go to you first, Marissa.
Their best case scenario is to stay healthy. It's a given. You're seeing videos pop up with LeBron relaxing and coaching his son, and then you're seeing AD in the gym, doing everything he can with his strengthening and conditioning and trying to be healthy and trying to be the key contributor where he doesn't want to be the butt of the media jokes where he plays 4 games and he's out like 5 months. You know what I mean? So I find it fascinating that it is said that they did win the draft. I'm not so sure about that. I mean, they did fair enough, but my big thing is in watching these summer league teams play, which they have been really good. Watching these young players play. Can this team come together? Can Darvin Ham be that coach that they fully trust to make them a contender? I mean, again, and I said it on this show, I was really surprised on how far they made it because I didn't think that they would make it at all in the postseason, let alone be in the postseason. And they surprised the heck out of me. So there's just, with the pieces that they have drafted and some of the moves that they have made, I don't know. I just still got question marks around this team and seeing what they're gonna produce in the regular season.
All right. I like it. Floor, go ahead, chime in.
So as far as the Lakers go, the free agent moves and the various moves that they've made in the offseason, it looks good. Like, they haven't done anything that I'd look at and say that's like, oh, that was a terrible decision. But they also haven't done anything that I would look at and say like, oh my goodness, that's going to make such a huge difference.
That part.
I think they still need some support. I think I was looking at the roster today, and I think it was the center position. I think they could use another backup. I just, especially with them being in the West, I just don't see them getting like a title or anything like that. So because of the magic that's brought to the table because of LeBron James, and if Anthony Davis can keep performing like how we saw him do in the playoffs, I do think they can make the playoffs again. They might even do relatively well, but I don't see them getting a title or anything like that. I don't see enough changing on that team or in their division for it to be that big of a difference.
I appreciate it. Thank you. Jeff, while the All-Star Game's on a little commercial here, go ahead, step in.
Yeah. No, like all of the ladies make some really great points. I think for the Lakers to win, I'm seeing this as a Lakers fan, and it would be a perfect storm for them to even win a championship, right? And the big thing is attrition, health, and productivity from two key guys, Hachimura and as well as Austin Reeves. You know what you're going to get with Austin Reeves, right? You're going to get about 15 and 8 a game. But Hachimura, up until the playoffs, really didn't do anything during the regular season after we traded for him. We are paying him to be the Hachimura that played in the playoffs.
Yeah.
I think it's a little bit too much of an ask to expect him to be the type of producer where he's, giving us 10 rebounds on an 82-game season, right? I just think that's too much of a tall task. Maybe it could happen. I question about Gabe Vincent and his ability to be able to fit in with this type of offense, and as well as defensively. D'Angelo Russell is horrific defensively. He can disappear sometimes. And the center position, to what our other guest had said, I mean, you really look at it, we might have to go after Christian Wood, who's terrible defensively, right? I mean, I think it's top 6, but I don't think it's a championship team.
That's interesting that Christian Wood has not been signed yet.
Mm-hmm.
He's still out there.
17 and 7 years.
Yeah.
That's kind of stuff.
Yeah, and Christian Wood had a pretty good season too.
Mm-hmm. Very surprised.
27 years old, 6'9". I mean, the Lakers sure are rumored to it, but they obviously can't offer the most money. I mean, just look at his averages last year: 16.5 points, 7 rebounds a game, 38% from 3.
Yeah.
As a big. Right. So, I mean, maybe he's kind of holding out for the best situation. Maybe he's holding out for the most money. Maybe it's a combination of both. But as far as the Lakers go, the one thing that they have committed to with the offseason moves and also, trade deadline moves and the offseason moves, they're going young.
Mm-hmm.
I wrote down they're 11 players that probably will see the most minutes.
Yeah.
Only LeBron and AD are above 30. And they got Jackson Hayes is 23, Cam Reddish is 23, Reeves is 25, Lonnie Walker, Jared Vanderbilt 24. The rookie guard that they drafted, which probably is going to see a good playing time, Jalen Hood-Schifino is 20. That's the one thing that they have done is committed to getting younger, which they obviously needed to do. Coming off Carmelo from a couple of years ago, Russell Westbrook, they needed to get younger, and they have done that. So, I mean, can they win a championship? The answer is a slim chance of yes. They need a lot of help. They need a lot of help. A lot of luck.
Yeah, luck.
Yeah.
And I just want to throw the question to our ladies here. It all comes down to LeBron and Anthony Davis. Look, the moves are great, but can we really trust that LeBron at age 39, going to his age 39 season, is going to be able to have the energy in the playoffs? And then Anthony Davis is going to be injured at some point. It comes down to those two. So can we trust that even with the other players around, that this is a championship team the way when it comes to attrition?
I would say no. LeBron ends up with a major injury every year. I think he's been fortunate in the fact that it hasn't happened in the postseason, right? Mm-hmm. But it is something every year, and all it takes is one thing to happen either during the postseason or to put him out for enough of the year where he's either still out for the postseason or he doesn't bounce back in time. Now, that does seem to be more of an Anthony Davis problem, which is another reason why I think they do need to look at another big man, a backup center. And I think they need to – the thing is they need to find somebody who's okay with being a backup, right? That's the big thing, And I think that's that particular fit that they haven't found yet. But like in theory, do I believe in their skill? Like, yeah, I believe in the skill of LeBron and AD, absolutely. But looking at where they are, like with the like, can they overcome the Nuggets and the Kings and the
Mm-hmm.
Suns? Like, I just I don't think they have enough in them, even on their best days, to overcome all of those teams that they're gonna have to get past in order to get a title.
The
And that's the
West
thing
is
more than
over.
anything. Like even if they just somehow found the fountain of youth and came back and they were
yeah.
great, it's like you got some real competitors there that you have to deal with, and I just don't see them doing that under any circumstances.
The West is loaded, and I think that they're
Yes,
going to be
very
running
much.
and running the tables for a while. I don't know how long, but they are fully loaded. And it
And
would
I
not.
think
Go
oh
ahead.
god, sorry. No, sorry. I have a bad habit of doing that. I'm used to talking like
No,
one
because I
other
was going to
person.
say the point. No, the point that you made was valid, Floor, because the West and those teams that you named, they did very well in not only the offseason with the trades, but also during the draft. And they're looking at strength, they're looking at youth, they're looking at numbers, they're looking at ability to compete with the Denver Nuggets. The Nuggets are ready to pretty much reload and run it back.
Yeah.
The Lakers, like you said, I mean, it has to be an almighty act of God. And I saw somebody's comment, the Facebook user said, Jesus came back, and made a miracle happen, like he did water in the wine and turning Lakers in contenders.
Yeah.
That's the only thing that I could see happen. I just don't see it happening with a very strong Western Conference coming up.
And I think that's why they went young, because that puts them in the position to do either one of two things, which means in a couple of years they'll be a contender by virtue of their talent developing, or
Mm-hmm.
they'll have pieces that are still young enough to be traded, hopefully for something good.
Absolutely.
And that seems to be the plan right now. I don't even think the team is expecting to get a title this year. I know
And how
LeBron
long
talks
do
like that's what he wants every year, but
right?
yeah,
And
it's
how long
not.
do they keep Darvin Ham at the helm? How long is his tenure? If they get frustrated enough where they're not making the move and they're not going to be that team that can get to the postseason, how long do they keep him, running the ship?
That's a good question. I think these teams get rid of coaches too quick, honestly. Go
They
ahead.
do. They do. They turn and burn them very, very quickly. Yes, Jeff, go ahead.
But just real quick, and Gary Legend, welcome back, buddy. Good to see you.
Hi, Gary.
Ham has proven, and Gary, I want to get your opinion on this. Ham has proven that he's a leader among men. He's an alpha man. I think he has earned a full season to be able to see this through, right? When LeBron James went out, Anthony Davis was injured, he still led this team, and they still were able to get out of the play-in and being able to to be able to get to a top 7 seed. I mean, that's a level of leadership that he has truly shown. And to be able to take this team and to be able to be Golden State and Memphis, I didn't think they were going to be Golden State. So I think he's earned a little bit of capital to see this season through. And I really think they're going to be a top 16 because even with the injuries, I like the depth that we have, and he has command of the locker room. That's a very, very, very big thing. Missoula can learn something. I'm just saying.
Gary, the Legend Johnson, welcome. Let's jump in on this Lakers talk. Have at it, kid.
All right, so let it be known, I am a diehard Laker fan, so there will be a little bit of optimism and a little homerism in me talking about them. But I also speak from an objective standpoint where I look at the big picture. Did the Lakers do anything to make them better than what they were previously? Sure. Their offseason pickups were good, not spectacular. There wasn't anybody that I'm like, oh, that makes them a title contender. I think I said towards the end of the season, especially in the playoffs, the Lakers team that we ended up with, had they started the season with that, we wouldn't have had this conversation. They wouldn't have been a playing team. They would have been probably the third. They may have won the division, frankly. They could have easily been that third or fourth seed in the West had they had the roster that they ended up at the end of the season with. And they've added to that. So do I think that they're going to be also Rams and be in that same playing position this upcoming season? No, I think that they will make their way into that 4, 5, 6 spot. They're going to avoid the play-in as long as, and this is of course the biggest ifs in the world, as if Anthony Davis can give you at least 60 games, if LeBron James can give you at least 60 games, then you're looking at a team that yes, they got to the conference finals, and that's over some talented squads too. So, are they right there with Denver? No, but I think that they're going to be a team that is no longer looked at as playing maybe. I think their ceiling is pretty much where they got this past season. I don't see them as a title contender. I don't see them going back to the finals as constituted, at least right now. And then you're starting to look at the LeBron clock. We've reached the point in LeBron James' career where each postseason is going to be that, like, what-if game. He's not going to sign long-term deals. He's going to go season to season and see how he feels and wait long enough for Bryant to play and see where the chips fall at that point.
Yeah, for sure.
Gary, let me ask you this if I can real quick. So where do you see the mantle being passed to these young players during the season from LeBron? Because again, like you said, the Father Time is somewhat not really on the side of Anthony Davis. It is pretty much almost time's up for LeBron James, even though that he looked absolutely amazing at 38 last year. When are we gonna see that mantle, the young players being trusted to take over this team and create something that because they can't rely on these two players. They can rely on their leadership. They can rely on their guidance. They can rely on, developing their game, right? But they can't fully rely on them for like 2 to 4 more seasons, you know what I'm saying, when it comes to the longevity of being a Los Angeles Laker. So when are we going to see that table turn for the young players to take over?
It kind of has to happen now. Like, you look at some of the players that they have on their roster now. You look at Rui Hachimura, Jackson Hayes,
Reeves.
Even though I don't really trust him for many reasons, D'Angelo Russell. I think the pickup of Cam Reddish, and you add that to Gabe Vincent and Jared Vanderbilt, that team has they have the ability to be a collective and be that team to kind of like push each other. There's not going to be – I don't look at this roster and see anybody that's going to all of a sudden break out and be a 20-point-a-game scorer.
Right.
I think I see a lot of 12 to 15 points per night, and I think if you get enough of them together, combined with LeBron giving you – let's just say he continues to fight by the time you get to another season of like 23 to 25, 7 rebounds, 7 assists. Let's say Anthony Davis can give you 25 and 10. Let's say 25 and 10. I'll go 25 and 8. I think they have enough offensive firepower to keep up in the West. And to answer your question, I think, like I said, it's going to have to be a collective effort. There's not any one player that they've picked up that's currently on the roster. Them like, okay, that guy's the future. That guy's who they're going to hang their hat on.
Right.
They've been running into this problem post-Kobe.
It was supposed to be.
Just real quick.
Go ahead.
Go ahead, man.
I was just gonna say, like, as far as the mantle being passed, one thing we can see in LeBron's history, even before he got to the Lakers, is that he's very vocal about whenever he wants to kind of pass the baton to someone. Like, he had that conversation about Kyrie, but there was already a wedge between the two of them, so it didn't work out the way he planned it to.
Right.
But he was vocal about, wanting to, quote unquote, give him the keys, as he put it. And then before the playoffs, he was kind of talking about AD in that way. But some of the sound bites from throughout the playoffs suggested that he's really impressed with Reeves. And I'm not saying Reeves will become that person and start scoring like 50% more points per night. But there's something about his work ethic and his attitude that LeBron likes. So I think we might see him kind of being like pushed in the forefront a little bit, just because that's kind of how LeBron tends to do things. If you start hearing him like pull out compliments on somebody and that person is on his team, he's going to try to start pushing them. So if Reeves sticks around, I think we might see that. But outside of that, yeah, exactly what Gary said. For right now, it's going to have to be a collective effort among the young guys. But as far as like who gets that baton, who the mantle is passed to, it's going to be whoever shows up and starts setting themselves apart. If we're expecting for LeBron as the cultural leader of the team to kind of play a role in determining who that next person is.
Yep.
So just real quick. So here's real quick, right? And she made she made some very good arguments. And I think that the person that's going to be passing the baton to is not on the current roster. And the reason why I say that is because we signed Achimura to 4 years. We signed Austin Reeves for 4 years. Gabe Vincent 3 years. We still got Max Christie for team control for another 3 years, who's going to be a second-year player for us, and I think is going to step into more of a very pivotal reserve role for us. Gabe Vincent 3 years. We still got Anthony Davis for another 3 years. They have a roster that once when LeBron James retires, assuming he leaves next year, is going to be a team that's going to be able to attract the top 3 agents, right? Because when you look at the type of supporting cast, with Anthony Davis, who's only 30 years old, you know, Achimura and Austin Reeves are still under the age of 26. Gabe Vincent is only, 27, 28. This is a team that could get a top 3 agent next season and contend for a championship. What about this roster once LeBron James gone that scares you from contending if you are a top 3 agent, right? So I think Pelinka is thinking about the long game after LeBron James, and I think that will set up pretty well for the next 3 to 4 seasons if he can get a top 3 agent next year, assuming LeBron James leaves.
For sure, that's valid.
Yeah.
All right, so we did a lot on the Lakers. Let's move to the Mavericks because I think that there's pretty good discussion here because
Excuse me.
obviously in the short sample size, it did not work playing Luka and Kyrie. So does that mean that is going to be the case moving forwards? But I kind of want to start with Gary on this, and I'm going to kind of change it up a tiny bit. I'm going to start with Kyrie, and because I think that he's a huge equation in this. Now that he got his money, should they be worried that he's going to start pulling some stuff? Gary, floor is yours.
Let's look at Cleveland. Let's look at Boston. Let's look at Brooklyn. Let's look at kind of how things went in Dallas to end the season. Like, I'm sorry that there's something anchorish about him as far as the franchise is concerned, and pulling nonsense. Like, I want to give him the benefit of the doubt, but his track record has proven otherwise. So, saying that, I'm like, they should be worried. I think, at this stage, what we saw from him in Dallas is probably going to be the best that we see from him. And if they don't make the rest of that roster work, you're going to see the same result. They're not going to be – I can't imagine them being any better than what they were, maybe being more of a playing team had they, let's be honest. They would have been a playing team had they not just quit, had they not just tanked those last few games. They would have been – and frankly, they probably would have made the playoffs. They probably would have been that 8th seed, or even be the 7th seed had they surpassed the Lakers. But be that as it may, it's just I don't see how that roster fits and how that works together, and how Kyrie is going to continue to or be on his best behavior, and how long that's going to last, because history has shown us it'll last for a little bit, and then you're going to start to have problems both with Kyrie, and then you're going to start to have problems with Luka, who's going to look at the franchise and go, we gave this guy $126 million for what? We're no better than what we were previously.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Floor, you're up.
Yeah, I don't trust Kyrie. I'll put it this way. I don't do predictions. I don't like to do predictions, right? But we had an episode in the late fall where I literally predicted the implosion of the Nets. And it was literally just off of nothing had happened yet. I was just like, I just feel it in my soul. Kyrie's gonna do something crazy. And KD, who we always say on our show, KD is not a leader. He's an excellent ball player, but he's not a leader. So Kyrie's going to do something. KD's not going to hold him accountable.
Yep.
Steve Nash is still learning how to be a coach. I was like, it's going to be problems. And then within a month, things started happening in the exact same order. I say that to say, that's how predictable Kyrie is. It's there are a lot of people out there who say oh, you're a hater. You're not giving him a chance. No, he's had chances. And what he's shown consistently is that no matter where he is, what the environment is like, what the skill level is on the team, is that somehow he's going to do something to stir the pot and shake the table. And I think until he proves otherwise, anybody has the right to be concerned. He just has not shown the ability to just show up, play to his best of ability consistently, actually be present for games, and actually help a team like do well in the postseason to the point where they're like an actual title contender. So I don't think the Mavs should have made the move, honestly, but now they have, and I guess they're kind of stuck with it. But I don't think it's going to go well.
Yeah, I mean, you bring up some good points. I mean, he it just hasn't worked. Without LeBron, it hasn't worked. And there's been various different reasons for that, and we don't need to go into detail on that. But anyone who
let's
says
go into detail.
No, because it hasn't worked.
No,
and you're
let's
right,
do it.
Ben.
Let's
And
do it.
you going there, we can go and
We
talk
really don't need to go into detail.
that he liked, and that he was not admitting that he was anti-Semitic. That whole entire thing that happened, and that conversation that fell apart between Adam Silver and the NBA, and then him being fined, and then him being suspended. Then Floor had brought up his stint with the Nets, and how he was saging everything and removing the spirits off of the floor and moving the evilness off of the floor when he didn't go and take a look at the nearest mirror and realize the person that he was looking at, to blame that person for all the craziness that was happening. It was everybody else's fault but his. And I was really surprised to see, and we all were in the group text, that he got that much money, and that Mark Cuban was looking at him like, this is going to be our rock solid investment. I'm like, well, wait a minute. I thought Luka was your rock solid investment, and you're building around him. So basically, which is robbing Peter to pay drama. So that's what I just didn't understand that move. I think, and I hate saying this, and I'm here in Dallas, and I work with a ton of Dallas Mavericks fans and everything, and they always get after me about being a Detroit Pistons fan. And now that I think my Pistons will probably have a better record than they will with all this that's going on if they don't get the pieces together.
With Monty, yeah.
Thank you. With Monty's going to turn us around. Are we going to be contenders immediately? No, but I know that we're going to be doggone better than what the Dallas Mavericks situation is going on. We're going to be known for, taking a team and turning it around, and then, instead of drama that's going to be happening, and then attendance is going to fall off, and all this is going to happen, and it's going to be a business decision that Mark Cuban is going to regret. And the last time that he made a bad decision like that and bringing on somebody that he could not control, and his name just slipped me too, but he came from the Lakers. He was married to
Rondo.
Yes.
No,
yes.
Lamar Odom.
Yes.
Rondo.
It was Rondo, but it was also
Odom.
Thank you, Lamar Odom. Lamar Odom didn't show up for not one practice, nothing. Wanted to be traded, wanted to get out. Mark tried to talk to him, and that was a hot mess. So you would think you would stay away from hot messes, since you already been down that road of, the road of a bunch of potholes of hot mess, and then now this happened. So see how it goes, and but we all know, we're all intelligent people here on the show, and those that are watching in the audience, brace yourselves for this fall of drama that's going to already be on every network that Ben has mentioned at the top of the hour about this Kyrie and the Dallas Mavericks.
Yeah, see, the thing is, and I know, Jeff, you maybe have some technical difficulties, and you want to share some stuff here. But the one thing that I would say, Marissa, is, they didn't really have a choice as far as signing Kyrie. How much money they gave him, we can all probably agree they overpaid. But after they gave up so many draft picks and gave up those players that they gave up, they didn't have a choice. If they didn't re-sign him, you lost all of that, and you lost Kyrie.
327, real 524.
Oh, I get all that, but the bag that they threw at him, I'm still stuck at the fact that how much they gave him. Like that.
Oh yeah.
I mean, I see what
agree.
I see what you're saying about them not having a choice, so to speak, and I agree with that. That's kind of why I wish they would have just never brought him over in the first place.
There you go.
Everything that they traded him for, because what you said a second ago about him not holding himself accountable is exactly that. I think if we had seen him hold himself accountable for anything, like even just a portion of the things that have happened on teams that he's been on, I think we could all maybe give him the benefit of the doubt. But we've seen him consistently go from situation to situation
And play the
and
victim.
not underperform whenever he does play, because when he does play, clearly he's box office.
Mhm.
But he's not available, and then he starts drama that's out of proportion to his availability, and then he never takes accountability for any of it.
Mhm.
And that's the thing that makes you look at the situation and goes like, yeah, this is going to happen again, because there's no evidence that he's learned anything. As a matter of fact, he's probably become just even more like set in his ways and thinking that he's right. And if something else starts to happen, it's probably going to spin out of control, because that just seems to be his habit.
And the crazy thing, y'all, he's only 31.
Yeah. Now, Laura, I've mentioned this many times in the show where I've argued exactly what has Kyrie Irving done to warrant any of what he does, like any of the money that he's gotten or any of the respect that he has. Like, yes, is he a talented basketball player? Absolutely, but there's plenty of talented basketball players in the NBA that
Kyrie is
Go ahead.
Kyrie is like that person that like somebody who dates them, right? And that person is like, yo, like don't mess with my ex. They're crazy, But then somebody else comes along and is like, but then somebody comes along and is like, but she's so fine though, Like I'm gonna give it a shot. She can't be that crazy. And then they date and they're like, oh snap, like she really is crazy. And then somebody else comes along like, nah, it ain't her fault. And it just keeps going until everybody realizes like, no, it really is that person.
They find out for themselves. Yes.
Like Kyrie is so good on the court, and I can see how that can be like tantalizing when you're like, I need that on my team, and it's just like, no, all the stuff that happened over there, it won't happen here. I know it won't. Like, let me get that on my team, and you just want that so bad, and then you realize, like, damn, I should have listened.
The problem is they think they can change him. That's the problem. The organization
Exactly,
think
I
they
can
can change
him mentality.
If I bring him here to a good environment, if I bring him here to a different city, if I surround him with things that will make him, just be one and complete with everything.
He'll be better for me.
Yeah, but you have to ask yourself, besides one jump shot over Steph Curry 7 years ago, what has he done?
I mean,
what playoff series has he been the catalyst and the winner of that series from?
You gotta let's point the facts though. He has the highest point per game average among eligible guards the last 3 seasons in the fourth quarter. Okay. Like after Kevin Durant, I'm just saying, like he hasn't done anything since 2016. But the reason why people are enamored with him is just his handles, his ability to be able to create his own shot. He's like a one-man wrecking crew when he's available and he's locked in. So there's that. But secondly, you got to give guys a little bit of credit for how they handled this offseason. Lively, the 7-foot center that they got this season, was the #1 overall recruit in 2022, right? That guy is going to be a very great rim protector, and if he can develop a post game, he's going to be a steal. And then being able to get Grant Williams, I think, is also a very good addition when they lost Dorian Finney-Smith. So this is a roster now that has defense, has a little bit more depth. And even despite the Kyrie situation, they didn't pay him the amount of money that he really could have gotten. He got about, on an average annual value, about maybe $10 to $12 less per year on an annual average per year contract. So it's $126 million, but he could have gotten about $150. So I don't think he's really overpaid, and they still have cap space to still be able to make moves. So I like what Dallas did. I still think playing team, not championship, but they did a pretty decent job this offseason.
Yeah. So before we, I want to go, because this is obviously great discussion, passionate discussion. You guys alluded to the Mavericks as far as not making the trade. They were in the Western Conference Finals the year before, and at the time of the trade, they were the #4 seed in the West. Just to put some context on it, like they were doing okay without Kyrie. But I really want to talk about the Rockets because they are spending a ton of money, and I honestly, between this was just crazy money. So between Dillon Brooks and Kyle Van Vliet, they paid him a total between the two of them 7 years, $216 million to two guys who are not in the top 30 players in the NBA and are both so 29 years old and 27 years old, and you paid $216 million for those two players. I'm just gonna say, like those contracts are not going to sit well over the long term.
No.
And it just, I just don't get it, to be honest.
But Ben, remember when I said you have to pay at least $80 million? You have to spend at least 90% of your cap space.
They didn't need to do it on those two.
But here's my thing, though. You have to look at the free agents that are available, and you also have to look at how these. Look, I think Van Vliet, was a little bit overpaid, but I still think he's an upgrade at the point guard spot because when you look at the games in the Rockets, they were horrifically unorganized on an offensive perspective, and they needed a point guard that's going to be able to facilitate and be able to organize, and they needed a leader, right? Like, it's about culture, and I think Van Vliet was a perfect fit. Perfect. So I don't have an issue with them paying that from a leadership perspective and the way that he can run the offense.
I agree. So I think on paper, yeah, it looks like they overpaid. Like when I heard about the money that they were giving Brooks, I was just like, what? Are you serious?
Right.
But then when I think about it in context, and I think about the fact that, Ime Udoka, he's trying to set a certain tone and he wants to bring people in who fit with a certain culture, I think Van Vliet is going to do wonders. Because you got to think the Rockets have won like 50-something games over the past 3 seasons. So in terms of them, like, will they be disappointed with how like everything plays out, considering how much money they paid? I think if they see an improvement on that front, they'll be okay with it. At the end of the day, that's what they're looking for. And I don't think it'll take a whole lot for them to do better than what they've done over the past 3 years. I think Brooks hopefully has learned a lot from what happened with the Grizzlies. Unlike Kyrie, we haven't seen him go from team to team to team over several seasons and do the same thing. And so there's even evidence to look at in terms of his behavior at the end of the season with the Grizzlies to suggest that, maybe he did learn to calm down a little bit. And I definitely agree with Jeff about Van Vliet being the kind of leader that they need. Like, they needed a point guard like what Van Vliet is bringing to the table. And so I think between them needing better scoring, between them needing just enough of that tough guy attitude that I think Brooks will bring to the table, as long as he remembers to keep it on the court and not do too much on social media, I think those two, along with the leadership and coaching of Ime Udoka, will lead to a very different Rockets team. So it looks like a lot on paper, but will they regret it? I don't think they will.
I think this is more of, I agree with all the points that y'all made, but keep in mind too, this is a second chance for two people, Ime Udoka and Dillon Brooks. This is a second chance for them to clean up their mistakes that went mad public of what they've done, not comparing apples or oranges and which one had the worst one and the outcome of it and everything else. Both had job losses, right? Loss of income, right? Reputation ruined, right? But now they have an opportunity to do something special with this team, especially Dillon Brooks. He is good. When he's on, he's good. The antics, sometimes it overshadows what he can do on that court. When John Morant was hurt at the time, Dillon Brooks, for a moment, for a second, we saw the leadership show up during that time with the Memphis Grizzlies, and it wasn't so much of the antics. And I mean, it was for a split second. So what Jeff said and what Fleur said is spot on. Hopefully, we're going to see a completely different Dillon Brooks and be more of a contributor with this team. And obviously, Ime Udoka is a phenomenal coach. Hopefully he read the fine print of what he can and cannot do as a leader on this team.
Hopefully.
Yeah.
I think just him coaching is going to make a huge difference. When the Celtics started to struggle late in the season, that was one of the first things people started to say, like, oh, if Udoka was still there, they wouldn't look like this. So I think that's a testament to how good of a coach he is. So yeah, I think the Rockets will look a lot better this season. And in a couple of years, they'll feel really good about spending.
Real quick question.
Agreed.
Question.
Go ahead,
Are you
Jeff.
okay with James Harden not going there?
Huh?
There was a saying that Udoka didn't want James Harden from a culture perspective. I think we sometimes forget how culture plays an important role in a locker room and how James Harden wasn't a fit.
Yeah, I didn't believe for a second Harden was going back to Houston. I didn't believe that for months and months that everyone was talking about it. It wasn't going to happen. it did not make any sense as far as from the Houston perspective.
Mhm.
Gary, go ahead. What do you think about these Rockets signings before we talk some baseball? Because I'm excited to talk some baseball too.
Spent a whole bunch of money for 35 wins.
Dang, Gary.
No,
They're gonna be better than that.
They're going to be
Gary's the straight shooter. Gary's the straight
No,
shooter.
Gary's like, yeah, you're right. 37 wins.
like 35 to 37 wins. No, I mean they're going to be better, but you know, that was a lot of money to give Fred VanVleet. I'm sorry. Like I think you could have gotten him for about 10, 15 million less than what he got, but be that as it may, you needed a splash. You couldn't bring in a coach like an Ime Udoka and not have much to go with. Like he's a good coach, but he needs to have talent around him, and he's got talent, and I think he will make them a better team. I don't think it's going to be the jump that, say, Detroit's going to make. Like I think I look at Detroit, I look at Houston, and being those two are in essentially the same boat. They have great young talent, great young pieces, but they needed a coach, they needed a leader, they need to build towards something better. And I think Detroit is on a much their track to relevancy is shorter than Houston's, because at the end of the day, Houston still has to compete with the beast that is the Western Conference. You know, you can name at least 10 teams still, even with Ime Udoka, you can still name at least 9 or 10 teams that are better than them, and they are going to have to catch somebody off guard to really make any kind of splash this upcoming season. But really, I think this was a step in the right direction. You know, you're absolutely right. Harden had no business going back to Houston. All he's going to do is stifle any kind of growth there. They might be a playoff team, but they probably wouldn't. You know, he's not. You know, if you would have said the Harden of about 5, 6, 7 years ago was going back, okay, I can get behind that. That's a team that you want to watch. But Dad bod Harden, no, we're done.
He said dad bod.
As someone
Dad
with
bod
me,
Harden.
as a dad with a dad bod, I can claim it and I can call people out on it. That
That's
man
phenomenal.
he got in shape long enough for certain things, but at the end of the day, that man is what he is, and yeah.
Hey,
Okay,
Jeff,
along with the dad bod, Gary, let me throw this out to you. So, dad bod Harden, do you see him, or has anybody? This is for anybody. Has Harden ever been a leader? And if so, when was the last time we saw the leadership?
When he won MVP in 2018, that's it. That was the last time he was a quote unquote leader, and I think that was the absolute best of James Harden was left in that one season where they balled out. They won 65 games. They pushed Golden State to the limit, and then they lost. And I don't think he's ever been right ever since.
I agree with that.
And
I was
They
going to
were
say
the-
2018 too.
they came the closest to beating the KD Warriors out of anybody.
that was it.
They had the KD Warriors in Game 7.
Healthy
They were-
KD
Yep. It's like he won that MVP, and he worked his tail off that season and said his speech and held that award, and he's like, "Whoo! All right, someone else." It hasn't been. It was disappointing for me to see him not be fully present as a leader as I saw him in 2018. If I'm going to be a little harsh, and I don't know if there's any James Harden fans in the audience, but
It's not
I
harsh.
wish that it is reality, and I
it's
wish
reality.
that
That's
same
what it
person that won that MVP award still had that hunger and still had that leadership role to carry on, because in all honesty, I think Harden would be having hardware added along to the MVP role. I think he would already have hardware.
I think he deferred slightly to having Chris Paul, because Chris Paul as a point guard would be the natural leader of the team.
Right.
So I think he deferred more to him. And Paul's like, no, you're the guy. You're the
Yeah.
MVP. If I was supposed to be the guy and be the MVP, I'd be the one putting up the points. I'm a point guard. I'm supposed to be deferring to you.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that disconnect and that discord ultimately kind of left them in a weird lurch, and then they were just never right ever since.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Agree.
one thing about Harden, he seems to step up most when there's nobody else next to him.
Mhm.
Like even even in his current situation, like when Embiid wasn't on the floor or was out for a game, that's when you saw
Oh,
him
you
do
saw
his
it.
best.
Yes.
Like when it was all on his shoulders. As soon as you pair him up with somebody, it's like something happens and he
Mhm.
diminishes a little bit.
He's
And
like,
and
all
it's
you.
yeah, it's kind of odd. I don't know why that happens, but it's something that I've seen happen a few times in his
Mhm.
career where he does that. And also, I gotta go in like 2 minutes, so I just want to say shout out to Martin Talk Cowboys. I've been seeing him in the comments. Thanks for watching. But yeah, that's
What's
it.
up, Martin? Talk Cowboys. Yes.
So, Jeff, lead off baseball. Well, LaFleur, sorry. Why don't you shout out your stuff and you can talk about the most disappointing Padres or Mets. You lead that conversation before you go.
Okay,
And feel
so
free to
you
plug
can
and feel free to plug your stuff before you leave.
sure. You can find anything related to our podcast by going to bitcheslovesports.com. It's spelled exactly how it sounds.
I love this.
Where most of our new stuff is on YouTube, and we're getting to the point where we started off uploading everything on Spotify, and then we moved to YouTube. So we're getting everything kind of synced. But I'll be honest, I've not been paying attention to baseball, and I meant to like do some research on this question, but I didn't do much. The only thing I remember is that I feel like the Mets. I feel like I remember hearing something about the Mets having some really big deals in the offseason that made me think that they were going to do something this year, and I'm just kind of like, oh, they're disappointing now. What happened? So that's kind of where I am with that. But I don't consistently do baseball, so I'm sorry.
No, it's
All
okay.
good.
We're happy that you joined us and won't be the last time. We're
Thank
happy
you,
to have
Fedor.
Yeah, thanks for coming
Of
on.
course, thank
Appreciate it.
you. Y'all have
Girl
fun.
power.
All right, Jeff, we'll go to you. Mets or Padres? Most
Let's step
disappointing.
away from.
First off, we got an update. Kolkashet just grounded out, and they just did a hell of a catch. Yeah, that's all I'm gonna say on that. The Mets. We're talking about the Mets first.
Mets or Padres? Who's more
Look,
disappointing?
here's.
Pick a
Uh,
team.
I'm gonna say the Mets just because we know what the Padres are. They're very top heavy, and we know that it was gonna be about their lineup with five guys. When I look at the Mets, they have two former Cy Young Award winners. Justin Verlander, who won the Cy Young the year before, had an 18-4 record. I think had an ERA below 2, had a dominant season. And like when you think about it, it's the Mets. I mean, when you have a luxury tax, it's called the Steve Cohen tax, because the owner is just completely obliterating the luxury tax. It's the Mets. It has to be. The fact that they're this far down in the standings, I mean, it has to be the Mets for me, man.
Gary, go for it.
Now we've talked in the past about how the Padres are one false move from possible bankruptcy as far as the amount of money that they've spent, on their big stars, and for their record to be what it is disappointing. But everything is magnified times a million in New York City. You can't be the new kid on the block and make all the noise and big and brash and I'm gonna spend all this money and I'm bringing all the stars, and you can't do the George Steinbrenner and then not produce like George Steinbrenner did. You can't do that. You can't. There's no reason why the New York Mets are went to the All-Star break with a losing record. There's no reason whatsoever. Yet here we are. I think by and large they are the biggest disappointment. I wouldn't say in all of baseball. I think the Cardinals would be that, but I think as far as of the two teams, I think the Padres had a larger hill to climb beside, with the Dodgers being in their division, and the Giants kind of taking a step back and kind of the Diamondbacks kind of replacing in that situation, but they had much more hills to climb in their pursuit than say the Mets, where Philly is trying to figure it out, but they weren't really world beaters like that. And you have Atlanta, who yes, they're the team that you're always looking up at. And you would think this was the year, you have all these talented players, but this is the end result. I think by and large, it's got to be the Mets.
Yeah, so I'm actually going to go the other way. I'm going to say the Padres, and here's why. I'm going to go with the Padres because yes, the Mets spent a ridiculous amount of money, and actually just looking at it, spent 69 million more than the Yankees. 1-2 in total money spent. Mets Yankees, no surprise there, right? New York, New York. The Mets spent 69 million more than the Yankees, roughly. So by dollars wise and being in a huge market, the obvious answer would be the Mets. But my answer being the Padres is because of the age of the talent that they have. So their five best players most likely are Juan Soto, Fernando Tatis. They're both 24. Manny Machado, 31. Xander Bogaerts is 30. Pitching, Blake Snell is 30. Josh Hader is 29. Your top guys are more in their prime than the Mets' top guys, especially the two pitchers. Like, yes, Scherzer and Verlander have had amazing careers, but they're 38 and 40 years old. Whereas probably the two best players amongst the two teams, the two best players are both on the Padres, Soto and Tatis. So to me, that's why I went that way as far as Padres more disappointing. Marissa, are you still there? Did you want to chime in on this one?
Sorry, I had to take medication. I apologize, everybody. Still,
You're good. You're good. Don't worry. You're good.
I don't have a lot to chime in on because I don't pay attention to either one of these teams, except for the fact that, my forever, ever pitcher, Justin Verlander, is with the Mets and holding on by his 40-year-old strings. I just don't have a lot to say about that, but I would say the more disappointing, just because of the sheer fact that the points were made about the ages of the pitchers, especially Verlander, I would say the Mets.
All right. Jeff, go for it. Well, you already said most disappointing. So before we go to Gary's gripes, because we do want to go there, look, we can make this like 1 minute or less. Let's go around the block here. Atlanta Braves World Series champs this year or the field? Gary, go first. Braves win it all or the field?
Field.
Marissa.
Go Tigers. No, field.
Jeff.
I'm going to change it up. I'm going to say it's going to be the Braves and the Rangers in the World Series.
I mean, literally, it's the Rangers versus the National League that started off. I didn't realize so many Rangers players were in the All-Star game.
Yeah, I'm gonna say the Braves get it done. I think they're the best team. They have the best roster, so I'm gonna say the Braves get it done. But guys and girls, extremely fun episode. Gary, to you, my friend, Gary's gripes. Have at it.
Yes.
So
get it, Gary.
I don't have a gripe. I have more of a question that I want to present to the collective.
Okay.
We just saw a phenomenal home run derby last night. I want to know, power rank, like, the all-star festivities for each sport. So I'm going to say whatever crap the Pro Bowl is, the slam dunk contest or all-star Saturday night, the hockey, the NHL skills competition, home run derby. In my particular opinion, I would go home run derby, slam dunk contest, skills competition, and wherever the hell football does for Pro Bowl. Marissa, I'm going to go with you first.
The slam dunk contest has cooled a little bit. I mean, we haven't seen a slam dunk contest that was really good since the controversial extra time between Zach LaVine and he just won a ring, and it just slipped my mind. Yes, Aaron Gordon. And that one was absolutely phenomenal, and Aaron Gordon should be having that trophy on his case. But nevertheless, he's got a ring now with the Denver Nuggets, and now he's on a different team. So I would kind of switch it up a little bit. The home run derby, I texted you guys last night, and I said that was one of the best that I've seen in a long time. I mean, right down bat for bat, hit for hit. These guys just brought it. little bit of me wanted Adley Rutschman to win it for the Baltimore Orioles, just because, we haven't seen, I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, gentlemen, we haven't seen a catcher win this, if I'm not mistaken. And it's been a long time since a Baltimore Oriole has won a home run derby. But for him to go out there and just crush it like he did, and it was just, the whole entire night was just absolutely amazing. So I would say the same order as you, Gary. I would just switch the slam dunk contest slightly down just a little bit, just because I'm that type of person. If you're going to bring a unique type of dunk that we haven't seen, and all of us have been watching basketball for a very long time, I understand if you're doing a tribute dunk to like Jordan or Dominique Wilkins or, Spud Webb or the greats that have been in the contest, or, you want to jump over a Kia like Dwight Howard. I don't know. But I just want some different kind of flavor to the dunk contest. And I think pretty much the way that the judging rules are and how some of these dunks are, it kind of it's starting for a while has gotten stale.
Fair, Ben.
That's my gripe.
Gary, I got the same order as you. In baseball, as far as all-star festivities, I go baseball, NBA, NHL, and NFL. Can't tell you the last time I watched the Pro Bowl. That's how bad out of the four.
They did pretty good with this one with the new format. The new format was actually decent. It actually captured my attention on how they did all that and had different games and different events for the players, and utilized their skill while having fun at the same time. Some of the stuff was I didn't understand it, but I know they're still tweaking it, trying to capture the attention and let alone their bottom line to get people to buy tickets so they don't have to travel somewhere tropical for them to watch, their favorite players play. But they're still working on it. I think they'll probably they'll make it better this next season coming up in the postseason.
Jeff may be frozen. Don't know if he can answer the question.
Oh, there he is.
So what?
There he is.
Yeah, no, I'm here. All right.
So rank the four.
Honestly, and I'm saying this from experience because I've attended all four. I've been to all of them just about. I'm going to say MLB. This experience, the way that they have everything set up, is phenomenal. I'm going to say NBA. The slam dunk contest, to your point, Marissa, it's kind of stale. It's just not. It just doesn't do it for me. But I think the NHL, like when you're actually there, you're in the experience. I think it's pretty dope. And the NFL is not made for all-star. It's just, that's not the type of product because of how physical that it is. But I think football reigns supreme over everything else. But when it comes to like team types, I think it's pop. But that's not what it's made for. So I would say MLB, NBA, NHL, NFL.
All right, a lot of agreement there. I like it.
I like that question, Gary. That was good.
Yeah, for sure. It's been an amazing episode. We are getting closer to 100, everybody. This is 94, so we are on the track to 100. Thank everyone for all of the support, and stay tuned until next time.